Good evening. Oh my god, they have to move.
Hi everybody and welcome to The Circle. This is our third effort at this. The last one was a ripper. We've got a total of 4 people who we will be talking to tonight about a very important subject, which is about children and about young people in particular, and young people in self-harm and suicide. So I'm just going to have a conversation with you about an article that came from the conversation, and then we'll introduce our panel to you. The article was from the conversation, and it was about talking about suicide and self-harm in schools. So why do we need to talk about self-harm and suicide? A prevailing myth about self-harm is that people do it for attention. If we follow the logic, we can assume that we will naturally identify those who are engaging in self-harm or considering suicide. Overwhelmingly, research does not support this idea. Only around half of young people who self-harm disclose the behaviour to anyone. Young people often go to great lengths to hide self-harm. It can be very hard to admit self-harm or suicidal thoughts. People may fear a negative response or worry that information will be spread without their consent. Some young people may not view their behaviour as a problem. Self-harm is often a way of trying to cope with overwhelming emotions, and some people may feel that this strategy is working. Teachers and parents might be on the lookout for warning signs for self-harm or suicide, such as depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, or experiencing stressful life events. However, recent research highlights that not all young people who self-harm fit this profile. Yes, we need to keep an eye out for self-harm, for suicidal behaviour and other mental health difficulties. But unfortunately, this is not enough. As a community, we need to be proactive, positive strategies to reduce youth self-harm and suicide. Schools are on the front line of this work because they provide the greatest access to young people. So we're going to talk tonight with this, we're going to start with this particular panel. So I hope that kind of what I've just said introduces you to the concepts around self-harm and suicide. And we're going to talk about where that sits in our community and how we can best manage and deal with that issue. So I have with me on my left Frank.
Yep.
Good to see you, Frank. Looking good. He's got his Child Protection Party t-shirt on, which is fabulous. I haven't, mine's in the wash. And we have Jodi over here who doesn't own a Child Protection Party t-shirt. And so so hopefully we'll get her into gear at some particular point and she'll get her act together. So the issue around mental health in particular, we'll start with that in terms of young people. Do you guys have any comments about whether or not we are addressing the issues around mental health in terms of young people adequately enough?
I don't think we are.
In what way, Frank? What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of kids at school obviously have some sort of stress, mental health issues, whether they're in care, DCP, whether their parents care, or just life in general throws at them, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone feels different about different things in the world.
They do.
And they can't express themselves because they don't know how to.
And as I said in my introduction from the conversation was that a lot of people kids feel embarrassed about having to talk about this issue. And I wonder if we can just have a brief discussion as to why we think children might feel embarrassed about talking about suicidal thoughts or self-harm.
Confidentiality.
Yeah?
Yeah, they don't know who to trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can tell their parents, the parents probably think nothing of it. They can tell a counsellor at school if they might not trust them either, or a teacher. The trust issue.
Yeah.
I find it's probably mental health issue wise.
So why do you think there is that lack of trust? What's that all about, do you think? Do kids not trust adults? Do they not trust telling each other? Why is it they're not trusting?
I think they're not even trusting themselves, really.
No, that's a good point. In what way? What do you mean by
And
that?
in making the right decisions,
For
and
themselves,
really, and they just need somebody to give them a hand. But it's about getting them to reach out.
Yeah, so the issue is about them finding someone that they can go to.
Yeah.
That will be able to. Yeah. So who are those people? Do you think that they can go to that will help them in that area?
Well, you'd like to direct them to people of some sort of authority, like police, church, whether it be a priest or the local. Just police or
Priests are a bit
Priests
iffy
are-
these days, so I'm not suggesting that we necessarily.
not really religious. That is.
No. Well, Frank
police.
was a priest in a previous life.
That's what I'm saying.
So
I was an altar boy actually.
yes, he's a
I
boy.
sang in the choir.
So he's a boy that was altered, to put it mildly.
Sang in the choir baritone.
So, but there is that issue, I guess, about young people finding the appropriate people to be able to contact and talk to.
Absolutely. If it's not parents, if they can't speak to parents or carers, I do know of like kids that have felt they can't even speak to the counsellors at school. So where do they go from there?
Yeah.
And I guess it's about information they can get at school, like Beyond Blue.
So well, absolutely,
Headspace.
absolutely. Do you think there are one of the reasons why they don't talk about it is that it's embarrassing?
Absolutely. But the
and-
confidentiality of the wrong people finding out, and in fear of, they may think that,
They say the wrong word, it could be misconstrued.
and they'll be taken the wrong way, and maybe.
Is it a cultural thing though? Is it that we haven't built a culture that says it's okay to talk about our emotions? And
I think
it's
we
okay
are
to
getting there. Absolutely.
It's always been to do that. Men can't cry in front of kids. Who says that?
Yeah, well,
It shows you're human.
well, that's right, and we
kids can
know.
say, "Oh, geez, Daddy cries. Maybe it's alright for me to cry, or maybe it's alright for me."
So
to
maybe,
cry."
well, that's a good point. So maybe it's about our modelling as parents or as adults or as
Absolutely.
caregivers about the appropriateness about talking about emotions.
There is more about it, like starting to come out nowadays. But especially with male gender, anger and happiness is pretty much the two main emotions that it was okay for them to feel. So, yeah.
And we all have. I mean, we all have those emotions, don't we? I mean, we all have.
I've seen you
we all-
cry.
Well, I cry a lot.
Yeah, tear in his eye
actually.
last week.
I did. That was
On my
'cause-
shoulder.
That's because you were standing on my foot at the time, Frank. So I think though that a lot of the work I've done over the years has been around men and emotions, and it's a very important topic, I think, because we need to be able to express it. So I guess the important issue is, do we have role models? And one of the things about don't want to pivot necessarily to child protection, but those of us who have been involved in that area, either as parents or otherwise, know that the department kind of frown upon expressing emotions. Have you ever noticed that? Is that
Especially if you try to reassure your children or give them affection.
yeah.
So you don't come into your cry.
That's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
Oh, she's fired up now.
If-
Jodi's
Oh,
really
no.
fired up. Go for it, Jodi.
If your kids can't show emotion, how are you going to show emotion to say it's okay?
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. And then they.
I don't care about you, don't cry, you're not a baby. That's sort of mentality.
That's not on. It's
Yeah.
like if
your kid's upset or you get upset, it means you're human. I would think.
I think there's nothing worse than you see like a child that falls over and they've hurt themselves, and then the parents go to them at the house. It's okay. And it's like, it is not okay. My knee is bleeding and I'm hurt. But they need to know that it's okay to feel these emotions, because they also need to see that you get through it.
That's right.
You know,
need to.
that is.
So you need to experience the emotion
Absolutely.
to know that at the end of that you did survive it.
Yeah, that's
it wasn't,
right.
There is this.
And one of my friends, his grandmother
Yeah.
said to him a couple of weeks ago that it will pass. Those things, and that's what they learn.
Yeah.
Like we have shitty days,
Yeah.
but they pass.
We just
No.
bleeped that out, everybody.
We did.
You
You didn't hear shitty.
Didn't hear that word shitty. Well, we all do, don't we?
Yeah.
So when we're encouraging kids to express their emotions, we need to know that they can express the range of emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's from anything from happy to joyous to pleasure to anger and even vengeful type thinking.
And if they can't,
Sadness.
with the people that are closest to them, then where do they go?
Yeah, exactly.
And they may very well receive the wrong information. So it's really important that we are there for them.
And I think, I just want to come back to pivoting back to child protection. But like if we're teaching kids that the parents can't demonstrate and show their emotions, and that it's a no-go zone. Then you what is the message that we're giving kids about their ability to be able to express or the appropriateness of expressing emotions when they're feeling stressed? Well, they can't express it.
Communicate it.
Yeah, and what kids need to express it more than those kids that are in care who are feeling traumatised or unhappy or sad about being removed from their parents or whatever it is that's happened in their life, what other traumas they've got. So they need to find a way to be able to...
They still need to express themselves, so they don't know to go home too. They want to...
I was just going to say, what sort of experience have you had in regards to that? I myself, with every emotion that, like, if it's happiness or I'm sure it is sad, I've learned how to meet my child's needs in regards to that, but I haven't felt like I couldn't. Like, maybe I don't really care what DCP thinks in regards to that because I'm doing the right thing. But what experience have you had, sort of? Have you felt like you can't console them, or you're just trying to keep them quiet?
One, the old one here will show emotion.
Yeah.
Work freely, cries, upset, if something, he gets angry, if it's not going his way, access.
Yeah.
Whereas the youngest one will not say be responsible because he's more or less like an empty shell. He'll just sit there looking out the window, he shows no emotions. Before...
But it doesn't mean he doesn't feel them.
No, he does feel it, but the thing is, before, when we had stimulation for him, i.e. whether it was music, videos going, he'd react to the music, he'd react to the video, he'd cry, he'd be happy, he'd be like teary. He'd go through a range of emotions. Now it's just like food.
Yeah.
So we know it's a change. We know it's a change.
It scores from.
So there's a bit of lack of support there.
It's gone from positive to stale, but we've told him this is what we were doing before.
Yeah.
With it in access, whether it was watching a video, put music on with dance around, act the goat, with him, and he was happy.
Can you, and you feel you can't do that now, or?
Well, you can't in a room no bigger than
3 by 3. I get it.
So we pushed for the outside.
Yes.
Outside in the park. He gets on the swing, he climbs up and down, stepping in, up the rope. He's happy.
So you raise an interesting point about environment, actually.
It's the environment.
Because sometimes, I mean, for all kids, no matter who they are, the environment is what's going to determine their degree of satisfaction and happiness.
Towards the access where we're in the park. We all sit down, the kids sit there, we have a bit of a chat, they cuddle in, That's bonding time again. Even though we're playing with them, chasing around the swings and whatever during the day, it's the actual time where they sit down and want to relax, and we get a couple of photos of the kids and we talk to them and ask them what's happening.
And it's an interesting thing too that you're kind of alluding to, but it's good to focus on, and that is that if we're gonna talk to kids about how they're feeling, with boys, it's really important to be doing an activity with them.
Exactly.
So if one of the things I did with my youngest son was we bought a table tennis table, and he was only 12, 13, and we played table tennis. While we were playing table tennis, we'd talk about what was happening at school.
I think if you were my dad, I would have played dodgeball.
Why I always wanted to play A-ball.
Why dodgeball?
Sorry.
Is there something about dodgeball that's a bit more aggressive? Is that what you're trying to tell me than table
A
tennis?
little bit.
Get the boxing gloves out, but that's not
He also played football. But I guess the point is that when a kid's doing something active and stimulating, that's when they're likely to talk about what's happening for them. Like one of the things I talk about with clients is sometimes if you've got a dog and you've got a kid, take the dog out for a walk, take them to a park, play with the dog, talk to them about...
And because you do, it depends on if they're in a major heightened state, you need to wind down a bit. But you can't go in there and, they're major heightened and you can't just go and relax. You have to join them on whatever they're feeling, and both go through it together.
That's why we've got the park access. We're trying to introduce the pet park because the old one keeps asking about his dog. And dogs aren't going to get younger, they get older as time goes by. He's only 70 years. So how about we bring the dog in, let him play with the dog.
Yeah.
If it's not a good idea, then we don't do it a second time. But I'm sure it would be a good idea the first time because he hasn't seen his dog.
Absolutely. So there's things we can introduce to kids, I guess, that's going to help them.
Well, there's pet therapy and stuff like that also too. That we're talking about younger.
Being both on the autism spectrum, pet therapy is number one. It can help them come out the shell. It can help them talk. It can help them be responsible. It can do numerous things with autism for kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's even more beneficial for a normal kid.
So we sort of covered the younger kids and mainly in regards to the Department for Child Protection, but
Yeah, but what
in
about
high
the-
schools,
What about the older kids? Like,
Yeah.
What's the best approach for kids that are, I guess, 13 and over?
Most
What's
of
the
them
best
are
way
either
to-
on their iPhones or iPads or so you try to interact with them playing the games, I suppose.
But I guess-
if it's what they want.
But I guess there are even signs, like in that bit that I read out earlier, there are definitely signs that they suggest teachers look for. And that is, someone that appears to have a low self-esteem,
Yeah.
someone that's shut off, that's not communicating, that just looks
and
sad.
change,
Keeps
yeah,
themselves.
and
Yeah.
changes also. Because
Yeah.
I mean, some kids are just really reserved and they are okay, but then one would think if there's a sudden sort of change in behaviour that there's an underlying
good
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what sort of changes in behaviour do you think are the sorts of things that we should look for in young people?
And then how do they address that? How do they go and
whether or not
support?
they're outgoing as much as they usually are.
Yeah.
Yes,
They might start off real
absolutely.
happy on the board, by the end of the day, it's like starting to
Well, I think we'll be
fall
looking
away.
at. I think we're looking at stuff over time, though,
And
aren't we?
that's
Not
it,
looking. So not necessarily about a daily
Yeah,
thing.
parts
It's
of
about over a period of time we notice this person becoming more and more withdrawn.
Things build
Just
up,
make
and
this
then
much.
you get to a point where you've had enough, perhaps.
Yeah.
Start cashing out.
And how do you go about having those sorts of conversations with kids where you're noticing that sort of stuff?
Trying to ask them. Just
I mean,
Yeah,
you've
I
got
mean,
that,
it's
are you
ask them, say,
okay,
is
which
there
is
something wrong?
amazing.
Do you want to talk? Can we? What can I? You have any problems that you want to tell me, or do you want someone to talk to you?
Yeah.
Try to reassure them there's someone out there if they need to talk.
Well, maybe it's just sometimes about letting them know that we care about them.
Yeah, that's right. Letting them know that you're there.
Tell the kids all the time. We tell them that we love them.
Yeah.
We miss them, and they say it back to a point. Except for the other one who's not real, but the other one's always saying he loves us and to move it back and can't wait to see you next month and reassure them that things happen.
And sometimes too, I think that with kids as they get older, sometimes we can become, particularly us men, we can become less tactile. So we're not likely to give them a hug or a cuddle, or why are you laughing about that? There's nothing wrong with you. Are one of the most tactile persons I know, Jodi.
I say I look forward to my cousins when they're 12 or 20. Even my nephews, when I see them, they're I always get a cuddle out of them because I remember how they were and how I used to change their bottle or whatever, babysit them. And I always say, I remember you little, That's how, but we're not that, it wasn't. Not that old that you can't give your Uncle Frank a cuddle, so get a cuddle with a 30, 35.
Well, it is about that.
It's
I mean,
not
cuddling.
reassuring.
Well, cuddling is about reassuring them, and
Yeah,
it's about
reassuring
people
them.
knowing that we
I
actually
still
care for
care,
them.
man. You
Yeah.
don't see, but I do care. Yeah.
I think there's nothing more staunch than a dad who's like with their son. It's like they shake hands, but they can kiss and hug too.
Yeah.
That is
They frown
staunch.
upon kissing.
I still-
They got the lips.
I still kiss my
I
son.
kiss my son on the cheek.
My-
Wherever he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not his butt though.
What?
Kiss him.
Thank you very much, Frank. On that note, there will be another notification. So,
Bring it on.
in fact, we can't edit this because this is going live. But please comment.
It's
Please.
more ratings for us.
Send us the Carl report line. We need to know the number now. Okay, look, we've got it. We're finished with this team. Thank God, because it was. I can't see that from here. It was interesting to say the least. We've got our other A team. We've got two A teams. We don't have an A and a B team, and we're just going to break just for about 30 seconds. Stay with us, and we'll be right back.
That's it. What do you want to see?
Oh my goodness. Awesome.
You got to add a bit of luck to it. What do you
Yeah,
wanna sit in,
absolutely.
Stacey's chair or Lisa Karen? You're going to do that.
I think I need a cigarette now.
18, good time. Yeah, till we do another 18. See what we do. We're going to talk about a certain numbers.
Why? Why did you do that to me?
All the talking.
Did you actually say why did you do that to me?
Because you
It's a metaphor anyway.
Yes, yeah.
No, I don't. At all.
Hi everybody, back. Thank you for returning to the circle. Hope you didn't go too far away. Grab a quick cup of coffee or have a smoke. Particularly have a smoke, because we don't do that here, do we, guys? No. We have a team of people here, and I'd just like to introduce Anthony. We've seen before, and Stacey, and it's great to have you guys here. We're talking about So, what did you think of the previous conversation, guys? Like, did you learn anything from that? Did they say anything that was a revelation, or is it sort of stuff you all kind of knew? Would you like to add to what they talked about?
Well, I suppose mainly it was talked about like younger kids and stuff like that, but I think the suicide seems to be the main thing for teenagers.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in my 20s, I had like a party house, you could say. We had a lot of teenagers coming up, and that was part of the emo trend, part of the days. And so there was a lot of kids that were...
Anthony was an emo, if you can imagine
no,
that.
it wasn't.
I thought he said, when he first told me, I thought he said emu. And I had trouble visualising that. But
yeah, that's because I was like 100 kilos less. But there was the suicide was something that was talked a lot through that group. A lot of them felt hopeless, like they had nobody to talk to. And I suppose like us older guys were, there was a couple of us actually, older guys that was around, and they generally used to come and have a good chat to us about it. So they were... Was
that because it was a group in which you could everybody felt comfortable talking to each other?
We were all like accepted by everybody, but not by society. It was,
Oh,
it was
right,
more
true.
like, so we were looked down upon because we dressed differently and we behaved differently, and so we became a pretty tight knit. Like, so I still know most of those, I call them kids. They're like all in their 20s now, but I'm in my late 30s, and I still know all these guys, and you see the improvements they've made, stuff like that in life. And then most of them have moved on in life and have got good jobs and gone overseas, stuff like that. But you think back, sometimes you have to sit down with them and they'd be having a cry, and
I think what you're
open
saying...
yourself up to them as well, which is not easy when you think about the way I was brought up. Was we had to be quiet and not talk about our feelings.
So it's comfortable for you to open up to this particular group?
No, it wasn't actually. It was a learning experience for me too, because I wasn't used to having to open up. But you do. You open up to people that you get comfortable with them, and then you show your emotions, they'll start to show theirs. And so even now I still get phone calls from some of the guys, and they'll see how I am, want to go out for a beer and have a gas bag. So,
and I think you raised an interesting point though, and that is that sometimes if young people can belong to a group that they feel comfortable in, then they're more likely to start talking about their emotions and other things that are happening in their lives. What was your experience about... Stace, I'm looking at you. Isn't she lovely?
No,
she's
not yet.
fabulous. She hasn't had any sleep. But we're not going to talk about that. But she's still got her act together because she came along tonight, and we really do appreciate it. And if you start to nod off and snore, well, then we'll know that it's been all too much for you. So, what's your advice to a young person who is talking about how they feel about themselves and life isn't worth living?
It's a really hard question. It depends on the child and how they take
Of course
things.
it does. Of course it does.
There's no guideline on how to really talk to. I have a child who has tried self-harm and tried committing suicide, and I still struggle. She's my child, but I still struggle to know how to talk to her about that.
Wow. I think that's so true for many parents who've experienced children with mental wellbeing issues, that they really struggle to know what to do about that.
Yeah.
That's a good discussion point, really. So what do we do as parents when we come across a child that's kind of struggling? I mean, do we sit down and listen to them? Do we label them, tell them to stop being stupid?
No, well, you don't do that.
No, we don't do that, okay.
But I think, yes, talking to them, but sometimes you're not the best person to talk to either.
Yeah.
And that needs to be recognised, and you need to recognise if you're not that person and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And then help her find the right person to talk to about those issues. And that's the case with me and my child. I'm not the best person to talk to about that. I don't understand the thinkings. And I, as much as I try and understand what makes her want to actually harm herself. So I'm a mum, I love her. I can't understand you. I don't want you to do that to you. I don't want you to do that to us. You're my baby, don't hurt yourself. So because I'm not in her brain, I'm not trained, I think it's better to have someone, a professional.
Well, I don't think anybody's
on board.
But do you think that you could, do you try and understand, hold on, when we talk about self-harm, which is now what Stacey's talking about, do you think there's the myth that that's about attention? Do you see it as something else, or how do you approach that in terms of your view of what this behaviour is about?
I know people say it's attention, and in a form it can be. It's attention. I need help.
Well, that's attention. I need help is not necessarily
not a
attention
bad
for
attention.
attention's
That's
sake.
right. It's not like attention seeking. If that's
Yeah, that's
the way
right.
to put
That's right. Yeah.
It is attention, but they need help. Attention.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Look at me, please help me, and that's what you need to do. Help them.
Yeah. And what's the best? I think the best form of help is to firstly understand that it isn't about seeking attention. It's actually about a pain, right? And when you have discussions with people about what that pain is like, and also I've had discussions with young people about the cutting. What does that do? And it varies from people to people, from kids to kids. So sometimes it could be just about the feeling of cutting. It's about the seeing of the blood. It's about
feeling alive.
Feeling
alive.
That's right.
Common thing back with those kids that used to come around.
Yep.
They were all cutters, and it was quite often just to
feel
enough a little bit.
to actually feel something.
Yeah, to feel sometimes it's better to feel that sort of physical pain than it is the emotional pain. Yep. And some people talk about a whole lot of stuff which we won't go into now because it's a bit gory. But it's really about so when you've discovered that. So do you feel comfortable talking about that with anybody, not just your daughter, but with other people about?
I've got to say, I did it all wrong to begin with. I had no idea.
You've never done anything wrong, Stacey.
Yeah, right. I had no idea.
Okay.
I didn't know how to. My first instinct was just, why are you doing that? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It wasn't, why are you doing that? What's wrong? How can I help? It was trying to work out, okay, well, just why? What's So I did it wrong. I'm slowly still working out how to talk to her correctly. If I feel that I can't, I actually say to her, all right now I don't think I'm saying what I'm meant to be saying or saying it correctly. Yeah. Can we give it a break, and I need to go and actually think about what I'm saying before I say this to you.
Very good.
Yeah, because it's not, never say anything on the spot because you're usually wrong.
Yeah, but go away and think about what this means, given what that person has already said, and your understandings about the problem, means that you can then come back and inquire perhaps a bit differently than what you would have if you're just bearing.
Yes, correct.
Bearing it and trying to. Do you see it that way too, Anthony? To think about what that, you try and understand what that person's experience.
I haven't had the same experience. My children are in that situation. They never get into that because I understand the whole. You don't want to see somebody hurt them. You don't want to see them hurt themselves. You want them to have a great well-being life. So I suppose the idea is to show them the right level of kindness, I suppose, and understanding, so that if you show you're okay with their feelings, then they're going to be a bit more okay with their feelings and open up more, I believe. Yeah,
and that, I guess it's about paying attention to what is happening for them, as opposed to paying attention to the fact that they are harming themselves. Like, I think they're two different things.
Yeah, I think you've got to take the focus off the fact they're harming themselves and focus on the feeling that's causing that.
That's it. Yeah.
And then that you can kind of solve the issue by focusing on those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was just wondering, Avery, have you got anything up there of note that we could talk about?
We've had some comments. Most of the comments have been, hi.
Hi.
Good work.
We can do that too.
Wendy Hawkins has said that there are some amazing mental health first aid courses that people can do. I'll help you to recognise how to deal with it, and I've asked her to send me the details. So
I've got
a website.
On the desk there. There's a book. Just have a go at that pile of stuff to your left on mental health first aid. Yeah. Which is someone I'll post. So there's this fabulous book out on it, which you get when you do the course. I have a contact in relation to that, so I might put his name and telephone number up on the website afterwards, so that we can contact him. But certainly there are, and maybe that's for professionals or other people that are interested. Don't have to be a professional, but people interested in the subject.
Wendy Hawkins has also said that you should talk to them and be direct. Do not be afraid to ask questions. You need to ask them if they've attempted previously. If they have a plan now, and let them know that you will be there with them right through any process that you might agree upon.
And if anybody has any resources in relation to this, just post them on. We know there's CAMS, there's Headspace,
Beyond Blue.
Beyond Blue, and obviously
Is it Men's Help, I think it's called as well?
Men's health.
Men's Helpline there is,
I've used it myself.
and that's clearly worked. You're a man,
Somebody had to help with that.
and you've done it really well. Yes, so and there's a stack of them at places around, I guess. The most important thing about this conversation is that that those of you that are viewing this at any time, not necessarily now while it's live, but later on, is to tell us your story about how it is that you've managed dealing with suicide and self-harm in your life. Let us know, as the Child Protection Party in particular, we are interested in what you understand to be helpful policies in this particular area. So we want to know also what's missing. You know, what would have been more helpful for you or your services? You know, the mental health programs we were just talking about, mental health first aid. Perhaps parents should do that sort of course to know what's happening for their kids, and that should be perhaps more widely funded by the government, so that we know what's what strategies you could use.
And I think in particular, if parents have had their children removed and being returned, then yes, that should be done, because they do need to be aware that there are going to be...
They're going to struggle, or there are going to be issues.
There are going to be issues. But they might not be as extensive as suicide or self-harm, but there are going to be issues, and it's good to see the, markers before it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
We've got another one, Tony. Wendy has also said that self-harm is about covering up emotional pain with physical pain.
Yep.
And one of the things you should do is validate their feelings.
Yes, and I think Wendy, I really appreciate that. We have covered that to some extent. I mean, the first part of our conversation was about emotions and how we need to validate a person's emotions. But first, before we get to that point, we need them to feel comfortable enough talking to us about what those emotions are. Anything else, Adrian?
Only one thing, and that's from me. You were saying about about the viewers, the members, the Facebook people that are like us, telling us things. To that end, as far as our policies are concerned, I've now modified the policies web page, where there's a button against each policy where they can read it. They can click on that button and send us an email to say, this is my comments on.
Oh, right. Okay. Excellent. Now, I just want to say, Avery's amazing. And yes, round of applause for Avery, please. And that if you do have questions, look, the thing about the Child Protection Party, and the reason why we have the circle, is so that people can start to contribute to these discussions. So, with Frank and Jodi and Antony and Stacey, gives us an opportunity to hear a range of views from people that actually experience all of this. And then there's many more of you out there who experience all of this stuff differently, I guess. So we want you to contribute to what we have to offer by actually writing a comment, as some of you have done, and by contacting, as Avery just said, the web page, and look at our policies and put in a comment. That would be really helpful. So I want to thank you all, guys. We've got a gallery here tonight, thousands of people. It's been fabulous to see you all. It's like working in a town hall, because it's got so many people in this room. And yeah, fake clapping. So thanks everybody for being with us tonight. Share the feed if you would, so that more people can see what we're doing. Thank you very much. That's all right. It stopped because it'll stop automatically now. Just go.
Very good.
Thanks, guys.
Not had anybody goes.
Maybe I should have read properly why we were here this week. Like, seriously,
Oh,
Tony?
that's what I was sitting over there doing before.